Welcome back to another episode. Today's topic continues the execution framework with Delegate. So, if you remember, in the execution 4D framework, there are 4 options anytime you get a task. They are do it, defer it, delegate it, and delete it. We've talked about do it and we've talked about defer it, so now we are on delegation. So what does delegation mean? That means to entrust to another. When something comes across your plate and it just doesn't seem to be a good fit for you, that's when you look for another resource to take care of it. That's exactly what delegation is. Now, for employees within a business actually usually receive tasks. So they're on the receiving end, they normally have tasks that are given to them. So most likely if you're in an employee position, you have tasks that are delegated to you or things you have to get done. If you are a manager, managers usually do the delegation. They actually hand the tasks out to their resources, their employees, and they essentially work to make sure that the particular employees that they hand those tasks out can actually get them done. That's why you can really tell how well an organization works based on the people that work within that organization. Are they getting done the tasks that they actually need to get done? So everybody has the ability to delegate, whether they realize it or not. And this happens very often within organizations, but even more so within families. So if you have a family that you support and work with, you already know how the whole delegation game works. And just before I came into this room, my wife asked me to give my daughter a wash up. And I said, no, I got to finish my video because we're all getting ready for a movie tonight and I had to make sure that I got it done, right? So again, my wife is awesome at delegation. I'd almost say a little bit too good. So what you have to recognize with delegation is sometimes you have to negotiate in order to, let's say, get the task that you actually want or to get the task done that you actually need. That is why negotiation is so important. There's definitely some more content that I could share with you on that, but we're going to focus on delegation a little bit more. So with delegation, there are 6 criteria that work with the execution framework, and I want to make sure you're aware of those. They are team, alignment, consequences, deadline, 2 more, scope of work, and priority. Those who eluded me for a second there. So with those 6 criteria, it's important to have a framework together whenever you choose to delegate something. So we're going to start with number 1, which is your team. Now, your team is incredibly important, not only for delegation, but to also create access control to you. And that's incredibly important, especially if you're running an organization or if you need to make sure you have time to make decisions. And sometimes when you make those decisions, you have to do a little bit of research, you have to do a little bit of thinking. Is this the best thing for you, your family, your effort, whatever you're actually working on and whatever you're doing? So your team is incredibly important. Now, if you have a well-oiled machine that has a team where everyone understands what their roles and responsibilities are and everyone is accountable for what they say they're going to do, you have a system that is running smoothly. And you can tell if you have a system like that because odds are a lot of the drama that can happen with delegation is something that is very limited because everyone understands what their responsibilities are, so you don't have as much stepping on toes back and forth. The larger the group or the organization that you're in, the odds of having issues can happen even more often because the lines between what particular people or groups' roles are, they coincide or they exist within each other. So you actually end up having a lot of toes that are actually stepped on. So I'm actually a big fan of having a lean team where everyone understands and knows what they actually have to do. That way there aren't any challenges in figuring out, well, we had this particular task, whose plate does it fall on, right? So your team's incredibly important. I call the whole idea of having the right team in place, having a bus with everyone sitting in the right seats. You might have the right people on the bus. If they're not sitting in the right seats, that can create issues in and of itself. So if you have a team, there's a few things to definitely keep in mind. The big pieces of that are making sure that there's a clear delineation of responsibilities, making sure that folks understand what tasks particularly exists as far as what's going to come across, and is that something they need to grab and put on their plate and attack. And if you actually do that the right way, you won't even have to worry about that stuff getting to you because your team's going to handle it before that actually happens. All right? So the first one's team. Team's very important. That's the whole part of the delegation piece. That's who you delegate to, your team. The second piece is alignment. And alignment is also incredibly important because it really determines, does this line up with your goals? If it does, you want to move forward with it. Most likely you want to be involved with it if that's something that you're interested in. But if it's not aligned with your goals, that's where you're more likely to delegate it. And something that, let's say, is aligned with your goals, but let's say you don't have enough time to do it, you might delegate in that case. But also something that's not in line with your goals, but also it needs to get done, that's where you also may want to delegate it. So there are two sides to that. Some stuff you actually want to do, some stuff you may not, but you can't handle it alone and need to bring in reinforcements. So that's where the delegation piece is super, super critical. Now, for consequences, number 3, consequences, it doesn't really matter where the consequence is. If it's a consequence that is very high, that just means that the person you want to have handling the job for you, or whatever the system is, whatever that resource is, you want it to be the best. You want to make sure that there are no issues whatsoever. They've done this 1,000, 1,000,000 times before, and they can handle it like clockwork. Right? So if you're in a jam, if the consequences are high, you want the best. If the consequences are low, then you can have a little bit more variety of who you actually hand that task to. Maybe you hand it to someone who's just learning something for the first time, but that's where you have that flexibility. So again, if it's critical, give it to someone who knows how to rock and roll. If it's not critical, you can give it to anybody for them to learn how to actually do it and get it done. All right, number 4 is deadline. So if it's a short deadline, then that means you need to find someone quickly. And odds are the shorter the deadline, the less people are available. So you want to make sure that you understand what that deadline is and who can get it done. The more time you have, the better it is to delegate it earlier as opposed to later. So if you have any of those issues that look like they could be problems, find the right resource now and don't wait. Because if you do wait, you might not find the resources that you need in the time that is left. But again, you can delegate anything with a short deadline or a long deadline. Just recognize that the less time you give yourself, the less time you'll find someone that actually, might actually end up working and knocking that out for you. All right, number 5 is scope of work. So, scope of work, if it's a really big task, odds are it's not something you can do by yourself. You want to be working with a team. But what that really tells you is that something that you're going to be working with on the team that's working on a pretty big project? Or is it something that you don't even want to handle because it's not aligned with what you want to do? So the big thing with the scope of work is if it's too much for you, get reinforcements to help you, okay? And if it's not in your wheelhouse, then you just delegate it all together, right? All right, number 6, the last one is priority. Now, priority works just like the others. It works just the same with consequences, deadline, and scope of work. The big thing here is, based on the priority, who do you hand it to? So if it's something that's super, super important that has to be done the right way, you want to choose the best. You want to choose the best. If it's something that is low priority and you know what, it doesn't really have a high standard of what needs to be applied to it, then you can choose just about anybody. So when you look at your team, understand who can do what. You can have people on your bus, if you're the bus driver on your team, but you want to understand what their capabilities are and what's their ability to get specific tasks done. And with your team, it always helps to have a really, really good team. Dependable, reliable folks on your team. So make sure that you are constantly on the lookout for that, because as you'll find when you start recruiting for your team, it's not the easiest. And you'll find that it will take time to get the best folks, especially in the right seats on your bus. But once you have that team, keep it together, make sure you take care of the folks on your team. And again, it makes wonders of what a team can actually do. Because if you have the right team in place, the things that they can do, you'll just be rocking and rolling. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson on delegation. I hope you're delegating if you're not already. It's an incredibly powerful tool. I don't even say tool. It's an incredibly powerful system. and you want that system working for you and not against you. So if you want to share anything in addition that I haven't mentioned today, feel free to share that with me and leave it in the comments section. I always love seeing the comments and the feedback. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. And again, we have one more, and that's Delete It, and you don't want to miss that one either. All right, thanks for tuning in. Catch you on the next clip. Bye.